Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH-FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. Got a fun one for you, folks. A place that really makes New Haven tick and click, right? Is that the way to say it? And turn. The Devil's Gear Bike Shop. If there's not any store in town that more symbolizes what's made New Haven such a wonderful place to live in the last 15 years, I can't think what it is. We have John Brehan and Greg Ludowski, two of the owners of the place. It's been itinerant. It's moved all around town, but played a central role in our rise as a micro-mobility city. Welcome, gentlemen, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And you're the first guest I've had in a long time who I don't have to say the following to. Please get so close to the mic that you're almost touching it. You guys are perfect. We hear you loud and clear. So, guys, it's Bike Month. Does that matter? What is that? Like, what do you guys do in Bike Month? Last year, remember you did the e-bike thing?
Yeah. So for us, every month is Bike Month. Clearly, it's our business. But this time of year, springtime, coming out of the cold, rainy weather and getting ready for summer, it's a national celebration of bicycles. It's time to remind people to get out and ride. You can commute. You can go riding for fun. There are tons of events throughout New Haven. It is a national...
Is it May Bike Month?
Yeah, May is Bike Month. So that's through the League of American Bicyclists that's celebrated nationally.
Does it affect your business? Do you sell more bikes, or it's just because this time of year people get on their bikes more?
I honestly think I would say yes and no. I think because New Haven is so unique, we do have a lot of commuters here. And it just brings people in. And it just, I think, as the Devil's Gear is a community shop, it just reminds people, like, hey, you're not the only one on the road riding a bike. It's go travel through the city, different neighborhoods, which is being on a bike is a great way to look at different communities. And just say, get on out there and enjoy being.
I get that buzz every year when I come into you guys because I bought my bike from you guys. I think it was, on Autobahn, it was probably around 15 years ago or more. And you give a free tune-up every year, which is really nice.
Yep.
And when I come in, when the weather starts again, I bike at work, I just feel so good walking in the store. And I think it's what John just said. You feel like you're part of this really cool bike community in town. It feels warm. You guys are, the same faces. It's not some faceless institution. It's part of a community that cares about biking, that enjoys it, that revels in it, and you keep us on the road.
Right. And also New Haven is evolving, which is like we're constantly seeing new faces, which is really, really cool. And it's like,
yeah, that kind of answers the question that none of us can figure out. Who's moving in here in all those buildings? And do they all have bikes?
I would say some do. I think that, and a lot of the developers have reached out to us like, hey, what can we do? Do we need bike racks and all that other good stuff? But folks who are coming from cities where it actually has a bike culture, like New York City, Brooklyn, of course, Boston, and they're coming here, Seattle, and it's like, hey, New Haven is pretty cool to ride around. It's small enough that you can ride around town.
I find that as long as they don't do those hills at the east side, the very it's the west side,
right. And it's for me, even coming in today, just riding. When I think about commuters, right?
Yeah,
commuters come in different sizes and flavors, right? It's not like the guy with a pair of khakis on and a bright vest. It's that guy working in the construction site. Oh, most definitely. It's that guy working in the construction site, and he got his hard hat on, locking up his Huffy or whatever he has. He's and she is a commuter.
And it kind of makes the commute nice rather than something that brings you to work frustrated.
Exactly.
It's kind of nice seeing the town. It's just getting there easy.
Yeah, and riding the bike.
Frustrating traffic.
You're right. Yeah. You're right, Paul. And riding the bike, it puts you in that kind of like Zen feeling, right?
Yeah. And one of the things I like to talk about is it's because you're traveling at that speed and you're out in the world, you get to experience New Haven, you get to see friendly faces, look in shop windows and things and really enjoy.
And a commute
The
should
commute.
be happy.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be this way to get you biting your nails and frustrated and angry at the world about red lights. Because I get into it when I'm in a car, sort of. You get these natural instincts to feel competitive and getting through the line and feeling pressure. When you kind of biking through, especially when you're slow riders, I am, it's practically walking. You kind of have this mellow vibe when you're doing work.
Right. You're right.
So we're talking to Devil's Gear, two of the owners, John Verhan and Greg Ladowski, about how New Haven is evolving and how they're evolving as a result as a store. And we'll get to that in a minute. Can I go a little more on who these new people are? So you said a lot of them are coming from cities that have bike cultures, and they find out that works here.
Yes.
And also, we built these projects with rules to not require as many cars. New Haven deliberately wants to be a bike city. And I guess you get consulted on that a lot, don't you, about how to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think City Hall's calling us every day, but we talk with some of the developers. We talk with we do have customers who work at City Hall, of course, and we talk with a lot of the new residents moving in about what they want and how to get around. And we often will also see people coming through the city who are visiting from out of town before they move here, and they're kind of getting a sense of New Haven. They want to find their favorite pizza place before they move here and all that stuff.
That's some work.
Yeah,
it's easy to go to Devil's Gear, but I don't know which pizza.
Yeah.
But so to talk to you guys, we were coming and talk about micromobility. So has that been one change? In the past, people talked about bikes. Now they talk about bikes, e-bikes, scooters. Is it true that more people are looking at more ways to go on two wheels?
I think that's the future. I mean, when I think about, that's probably one of the reasons why I actually brought in skateboards. When I think about micromobility, it's crazy because it's even that older woman who comes in with a walker that has a brake similar to like what you have on a bicycle. We service those folks, wheelchairs, scooters, e-scooters. Oh my God. And of course, bicycles and now skateboards.
Tell me about the skateboard thing. How'd that get so big?
The whole skateboard culture it goes in a cycle, right?
Because you were in high school, you used to go to Channel 1 with Luke Cox, right?
Yeah, like I'm not originally from New Haven, but when I first moved to New Haven, Lou Cott's store, Channel 1, was the first store I actually went in. And I was like, hey, this is owned by a brother. And it's a skate shop. And even till this day, when I think about a skate shop, he was ahead of his time. Like how it looked and how it felt.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted that in the Devil's Gear, right? And the way the skates, and I had people like, oh, when you going to... I threw it out there. Maybe we should carry skateboards, right? And we had an employee who used to skate, still does at one point. And he was like, nah, it'd be too, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right. And out of the two,
do it.
I just do it, right?
Do
and
it.
Greg is good because
Nike got it from you.
Yeah. Greg is like,
sure, makes sense. Are we going to be able to pay?
Yeah. All right, John.
Is everything going to fall down? Are people going to get accidents?
Wait a minute.
You have any work there?
Greg is like, wait a minute. We got boards in here now?
So tell me if I got this right, John. Skateboarding is cyclical. It's back in fashion now. The change with e-bikes is technological.
Yeah.
Have they developed in a way is that why it's blowing up now?
I think that's part of it. So e-bikes are still evolving. There's still a lot that's going to happen there in terms of the technology. And, for example, the batteries are getting to be a little bit lighter weight, longer range, that sort of thing. The motors are getting more efficient. But also in the United States, there needs to be a little bit of a cultural change to kind of meet the technology that's coming out. So we have e-bikes in the store, obviously, and anybody who's interested should come down. We'll talk about them all day. You can take a test ride, etc. But there's a big difference between Americans coming in to purchase an e-bike and people who've lived in another country or grew up in another country and what they expect out of the bike.
Tell me about that. Is that an infrastructure issue, or what people are used to on the road and sharing the road, or where they ride?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Definitely our infrastructure I'll say, has come a long, long way in the last couple of decades. Matthew, who founded the Devil's Gear, Matthew Feiner, started.
What year?
In 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So
no bike lanes back then.
No bike lanes.
Just the people going to critical mass rides out of your original store who were demanding the bike lanes.
Yeah.
Then we hated the bike lanes because they were sharrows and just got us doored and run over.
But you got to realize Matthew was the first person to actually put one of these sharrows down on the ground, and he was like, "This needs to happen."
Yeah. And so the infrastructure is getting there, and there's a lot of debates about bike lanes versus slow vehicle lanes and how much space do we have and parking, and it gets complicated, but also a lot of people who say are coming from Europe, they expect a bicycle and they're looking for something that will boost them as they pedal. And a lot of Americans seem to expect that an e-bike has a throttle and it's more similar to a moped or a scooter. So we kind of have to have a discussion with them about what are you really looking for and is this going to meet your needs?
So Europeans don't see e-bikes as little cars. They see it as like, if I get to that hill, which we will get to, that's going to get us up. Whereas you're saying Americans kind of see it as a motorcycle?
To a degree, yeah.
Right.
And is it not?
You can buy an e-bike that is like a motorcycle if you want, or something else, but the bulk of what we carry is a bicycle that will boost your power. So you put in some work and it gives you a little something on top.
I worry that I'm being one of those fuddy-duddy people who didn't like it when Dylan plugged in at Newport. Because I love electric guitars, right? But at first people felt like, this is impure, this is an acoustic guitar. I feel the same way about bikes. I want my acoustic bike. I don't want an electric bike. I feel like that's not a bike. Is that just something that's fuddy-duddy we got to get used to? Or is it really going to be that most of us are still going to want bikes?
So,
acoustics?
Paul, I think I was the same way, right? I enjoy pedaling my bike. But when you actually get on an e-bike, you don't have to use the power.
But don't you?
No, you don't.
The truth is there's some hills I just don't go to because I don't want the hills.
I mean, you could have it setting on off, and you just ride it as a normal bike.
So do you ride an e-bike every day now?
No, I didn't ride an e-bike this morning.
we do have a shop bike that we use for deliveries and some small things that is an e-bike. It's Well,
wouldn't that be because you might have to go someplace quickly that are kind of steep hills, or what's the reason?
No, it's not about the hills. It's about the carrying capacity. It's easier to carry extra weight when you have a motor helping you out.
And what do you deliver?
Let's see, the most awkward thing I had was a giant box of 200 pairs of grips that I went over to the UPS store with.
So you do a lot of mail work?
Yeah, that sort of thing. Or put a toolbox in the back. We do work on the party bike sometimes, so that sort of thing. Just pretty much anything small that doesn't require a larger vehicle, we can make do with our e-bike. We also have a trailer, so we can.
Are e-bikes a big percentage? Like, how much of yours is acoustic bikes, e-bikes, scooters, wheelchairs, walkers?
Yeah, so more acoustic bikes than anything.
Do you think that'll be the long term?
I think if we had more infrastructure, I think e-bikes would take over, just like in Brooklyn. And you know what?
Is that what's happening in Brooklyn?
Oh, it happened. It happened in New York City, period, in the 5 boroughs, especially when COVID hit.
So what's the infrastructure that has to happen? Separated lanes that are for slow moving?
Exactly.
Exactly. They have separate bike lanes and slow moving lanes for e-bikes?
Yes.
They do?
Well, they just have separate bike lanes, and they are guarded by, say, parking by cars, and more than
Which we kind of have, but they're not working out in practice yet.
Yes.
Not yet. But that's part of shifting the culture. The other thing is, the e-bikes that you sell in the state of Connecticut, there are 3 classes. Class 1 and 2, the maximum speed the motor goes is 20 miles an hour. So it's still in a human-powered range, pretty...
When you guys ride.
Well, you don't have to
when I go by the sign that tells you how fast you're going, I'm never going 20 miles an hour, even on a straightaway.
It doesn't flash at all?
Yeah.
It does flash. It does, and there are double digits.
Yeah, but I think if there was a little bit more infrastructure, people would feel a little more comfortable and a little bit safer out there, and we'd see more e-bikes.
So your prediction is that in 10 years, you're going to be selling more e-bikes if the infrastructure's there.
Yes.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we've been paying attention to is, and Johnny B's better about this than I do, is looking at what companies are doing and the trade shows in Asia where most bikes are built. And a lot of bike brands are switching to 50% or 80% e-bikes in what they produce. So that's what they're expecting to sell.
Will there always be a market for acoustic?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And why is that?
Because folks like you and me
This
and
morning.
Greg, we actually like, I think it's that whole Zen thing. I
It is the Zen thing. I was going to ask you. It's
Yeah.
like, and that's different for me from an electric guitar. You can have Zen with the electric guitar, but there's something about mobility and micromobility that tunes out the hustle bustle electric world and connects you with your environment and nature and your human rhythms.
right.
And that's kind of, I think, why one of the besides being a little clumsy, it's one of the main reasons I think I don't have an interest in an e-bike.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see, I think e-bikes will be truly, because I actually consider the bike shop as a bike shop, but I consider it to be a transportation shop in the sense of, or micro mobility shop, because I really, New Haven needs to go that way. I really think New Haven, they're right there. They're really right there. New York pushed the envelope and they're there. But New Haven needs to go that way. And what that does is, it's a couple of things. The quality of life changes, right? And then also people change. Society change in the sense of like, people are aware that they're riding in a bike-friendly town, especially when you see those lanes, especially when I think the mayor has slotted to put 100 miles of bike lanes and guarded bike lanes throughout New Haven. That's their plan. And I also believe that new developers should be on that. They should have guarded bike lanes in front of their buildings. You know, it just makes sense to me. And there will be a perk if a new develop has that, because people feel safe.
Are you going to call it always Bike Shop just for the quaint name of it?
Yeah, of course, it will always be the Devil's Gear.
But it will be the Devil's Gear Bike Shop.
Yeah, the Devil's Gear Bike Shop, of course.
Which is, the history there is Matt used to just call it the Devil's Gear, and he started getting some angry phone calls in the first year or two of the shop. And so if you look at the logo, a lot of the time, the bike shop is in all caps and the Devil's Gear is in lowercase.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about that history. We're talking to John Brahan and Greg Ladovsky, who are owners of the Devil's Gear Bike Shop, founded in 2001 by Matt Feiner. It's really been one of the wonderful institutions in town that make a lot of us feel like that's what makes New Haven New Haven. You've grown with the city. You've evolved with the city. Tell me so it started on a building I used to work next door to on 443 Chapel. It's right by Hamilton Street, right past where 91 cut off Old Worcester Square. So it was all industrial. When I worked back there in the 1980s, I used to go in the building that became the space that became the Devil's Gear Bike Shop. It was Al's Luncheonette, where a guy ran it. He said, and there were no one living except for a few people legally in the building we were in next door. There was no one. No one was living anywhere on that area. There were some factories and a lot of vacant old factories. And Al had the working man's lunch. He never charged more than $3 for a sandwich.
Oh,
Nice.
And he also took bets on the phone, sporting bets, and he got busted at one point, but he stayed in business. But so then, fast forward to 2001, everything is kind of vacant there, and all of a sudden, Matt starts the Devil's Gear, as you said, not even called the Bike Shop yet. Why did he start there, and when did you guys come in the picture?
Ooh. So what I know about that, this is before I moved to New Haven, but I know that Matthew never really wanted to be the sole owner of a business. You know, he moved back to Connecticut after having lived in Austin, Texas for a while. Pardon me. And he said, well, there needs to be a bike shop like this.
He did see it. The culture was changing. Young people wanted to bike.
Yeah, and so he just started to do it because nobody else was doing it.
And people were all talking about this space, and I remember younger people especially, and I remember on Friday afternoons you had the critical mass bike rides started there where 20 or 50 people would take over the streets, and a little bit in your face. There was a little bit of attitude to it.
Yeah, and so I think at one point, Matthew and Peter Chapman, who owned the building, they were in talks that Peter would be a partner, or, something like that. I think that was part of the reason that Matthew chose that location. I'm sure the rent probably had something to do with
It's
it.
probably in the negative range.
Yeah.
Sort of like old interest rates. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you guys come in the picture?
Geez. I'm starting to forget exactly when I moved here, but I think I started the shop about 12 years ago, approximately.
2000. What year are we in now? So you were in 2011. You were already a couple moves by then.
Yeah, yeah.
When did you start, Joe?
I want to say the following year.
Yep.
So they went first from the first move. It moved a lot.
Mhm.
Was to Audubon Street.
Yeah, that was a second location. Matt still
Oh,
had
that wasn't the same.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, and then
yeah.
it didn't last long.
Right. Well, that was what 2007 he opened up.
Yeah.
And, yeah. 2008.
What happened there?
Came a call in.
It was the
Financial crisis.
crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when did then they moved to Pitkin Plaza, 137 Orange Street,
Yeah. Yep.
which is a sort of a happening place where under construction right after that was the 360 Tower, right? When did he move there? Do you know?
That was, I forget the exact year. It was either, I want to say around 2010.
Right.
So it was before you guys started there.
Yep.
Yes.
And Mitch Stubbe was running it with them, and he was tragically murdered.
Yes.
I remember the store
Yeah.
became the center for everyone who was grieving about that right out on Pitkin Plaza. That was heavy.
Yeah.
You guys been through a lot over the years. Were you at the store then yet?
I was shopping there. I had actually signed up for a bike mechanic class that Mitch was going to be teaching. I think I was on the wait list. I don't think I'd gotten
And it didn't happen at the shop. It happened on Bassett Street where he was living.
Right.
Yeah, and
Robbery.
it didn't happen that year, obviously. But yeah, I was shopping at the bike shop. I hadn't started working.
So I'm sorry,
there.
Greg. You said you started 2012,
Approximately. I don't remember exactly.
and John, you were
Yeah.
2013.
Yeah.
I don't know
around-
why I feel like you guys have been there forever.
It
I feel like you guys have been such a presence in that
because we
place.
were at 151. That was part of 360 State. We were part of the building where right now Strange Ways is in that location. And
Oh, right. 137 was after. That was the
Yeah.
fronting.
and that's when I came on board. And I remember I asked Greg. Greg was like, "Yeah, I've been here a year," and it was like, and Greg was like, "Good, we got another person here, right?" And we had a big staff then. I remember that staff. Tons of mechanics. I wish we could find mechanics now.
And why was there bigger staff then if there's more biking now?
I guess because at that time it was David.
David was the manager.
David Kahn, who was the manager, and he was pushing. He wanted to be like Zane's in a sense, and
Scaling up.
right.
And you
but
guys wanted to be kind of local.
we wanted to be
community.
local, but you could still scale up and still have that flavor, right? And I remember it was like something's not right here, because it was the conflict between Matt and David, and Matt clearly is the artist, right? But he's also the founder, and David was focusing more on the business. And how can you have two? And you can have two, but they just couldn't see eye to eye on certain things.
I remember it was an ugly breakup, so
Yes.
it cost
Yes.
some money.
Yes.
But you
Yes.
guys persevered. When did you folks ascend to become owners of the place?
It was probably shortly after, I want to say, the whole, was it 137?
Yeah, I forget exactly what the timeline is, but I want to say about 5 years ago, five
Yeah.
and a half, we started discussing it with Matt because,
We were running the shop.
yeah,
anyway.
we were basically running the shop. Matthew, as you know, Paul has been dealing with a lot of
Yeah,
health
Matthew
issues.
moved on
and-
where he was going to do
yeah.
day to day.
And so he needed to step back and take care of himself.
So you both at the same time became co-owners?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't forget, we were running also the New Haven Bike Share. Had a company called the New Haven Bike Share Mechanics when the bike share was in town.
Yeah, we were doing all the repairs on those bikes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
we were like,
And why did that fall apart? That wasn't your job. Their job was to. What was? I hated the ads. I got to tell you. I thought
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
telling people to be on it, telling kids to be unhealthy and destroy your health, and then get on a bike for 5 minutes, and pay them some money.
I think it was a couple of things. I think the back end and the company who was running the back end of the bike share got bought out by a venture capitalist.
Always happens when you say that word. It's over.
Oh,
Oh,
and it's
man.
like, and I remember telling Greg,
Venture
like,
capitalists. What can we cut? How can we screw everybody
Yeah.
and get most money out of this community? And now you won't even see our face.
and they wanted a quick turnaround on funds. The sad part about it when COVID hit, we pulled the bikes in February.
Yep.
If they just stayed another month, boom,
Everybody was riding.
everybody was riding. Just think about New York, the city bikes. The city bikes, their ridership jumped up like 3 times,
Yeah,
4
skyrocketed.
times. It skyrocketed. All they had to do was just hang on. Because right now we probably would have electric bikes out there for rent, and that makes a city.
I wonder if they'll bring it back. They don't have Doug Houseland anymore at the traffic authority, so at Park. So I don't know if they have the same kind of impetus for it.
we can't talk.
You can't talk about that. That's not your job anyway. Your job
Right,
is running the
right,
Devil's Gear Bike
exactly.
Shop.
Right.
One of the long-running and evolving into the future, guiding us. You're steering us.
Yes.
Devil's Gear is steering us into the golden new age of micromobility in New Haven. And talking about that on Dateline New Haven at 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. So then why did you, in the pandemic, it went nuts. All of a sudden, I remember going by the store with my bike, and you guys were like overwhelmed because all anybody wanted to do was buy bikes. Everything was on back order. Plus, you had the supply chains.
Yep.
And you had that
backed up.
you had that line outside.
Yeah,
I remember that.
How did you guys roll with the pandemic, and how did you make out with it?
It's crazy, Paul, because when it was scary, but I think, and I'm glad I had Greg as a support anchor, because with me, I remember the day that they were going to shut down the city, we were literally sitting in Key Bank talking to our banker, and we were getting a line of credit because we wanted to buy. I was like, we got to buy stuff. I don't know.
You knew
but
it was coming.
It's a gut feeling. So we got to buy stuff.
So that was smart. You had a gut
Yeah.
feeling that it was time to expand when
And
everybody
the-
else was closing.
The funny thing was like, are you sure you want, the banker was like, are you sure you want to do this? And I looked over at Greg and I was like, I think I was already signing my name on it. I was like, heck yeah.
And you already knew the pandemic had hit. So were you thinking this is the time to expand?
It was that, but also we were hoping, because New Haven was following New York in the trends, right? So they already deemed bike shops as essential businesses.
That was just a couple days earlier. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Friday before the Monday or something like that. It was
So you're doing, was it a big expansion? Like what kind of line of credit did you get?
We just got like 50 grand, but that was
That goes, yeah.
Yeah.
What did you do
Yeah.
with it? You got new stock or new?
We got stock.
Oh, that was before everybody couldn't get stock.
Yeah.
Well, good move, guys.
good move, but
You know more than that venture capital is going to destroy the,
but
destroy
the
the bike
crazy
share
part
program.
about it was we ran that went like lickety split.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like really because everyone was pulling out old bikes and because people needed stuff
So you were what kind of hours were you working during the pandemic?
all hours.
all hours.
Yeah.
Like what's all hours?
Like even we closed on Monday, sometimes we were in there working on Monday, and don't forget we were still kind of dealing with the bike share, finishing
We
up.
finished up, yeah, but we still had occasional.
But I mean, like, were you working
meetings and stuff.
12-hour days, 16-hour days?
Yeah,
We do
definitely.
that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all day.
all day.
And
every
did you
day.
do okay? Did it help you?
It put it this way, it did. The thing that I think most people, when you look at us and you're like, oh, the devil's gear, believe it or not, the bike industry is a hard industry. It's
Yeah.
not, the margins are not great, and especially now during COVID because everything went into like shipping costs. If it costs the manufacturers to ship a bike more, because you got to remember, I couldn't, if you didn't know, like the ship prior to COVID, to ship a shipping container of bikes from say Asia to the United States was roughly around $1,100. It went all the way up to $20,000 during COVID.
Wow.
So
Wow. Is it back down or is it staying?
I think it's right now around anywhere between say 15 to 2 grand.
That's how I feel like everything's coming down, but not down where
Yeah,
it was.
exactly.
Right, and the margins are still, the margins are smaller.
So why did you move? When did you move around the corner to Chapel, and why?
So we moved around the corner to Chapel. I think our first day there was maybe November 1st, 2020. So deep in the middle of everything being shut up
Wow.
or whatever.
Must have made it easier to move around the street when there aren't as many cars.
Yeah, it was, we got through.
Close
There were
down.
ups and downs about
Why
that.
did you move around?
Our lease was up at the previous space. The new space is double the size. And we went from a kind of standard landlord. Our current landlord is the Institute Library, a nonprofit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And we love those folks.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
So how big's your store now?
So the main sales floor when you walk in is about 1,200 square feet. Then our service area behind that is about 1,200 square feet.
What was the old one?
1,200 square feet
Total.
We had some storage in the basement there.
So you needed more space because you're
we needed
growing
more
and you're
space.
going micromobility in all dimensions.
Mhm.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, like Greg knows that. What I loved about the space is you could be in the store and not be in the store. So we had those.
What do you mean?
It reminds like of, and you've seen the space. It's like an old store, like old time. It's like you got the outdoor show glass, like back in the day, and I love that because I remember going down in Baltimore, Maryland, going to go see trains go around during Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you're window shopping.
It does feel like an old movie,
Right.
like Breakfast for Tiffany's or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's very, very cool. And when we moved into that space and we did everything with the windows, we were literally stopping traffic. People stopped their cars to look at, like, wow, this is a bike shop. Wow, that's cool.
So art is an important part of what you're doing here. Was it before? Like you've really made it a gallery. I love being inside your
Yeah.
store. I
Thank
hadn't even
you.
thought about the store,
Yeah.
the window. The window's cool. I hadn't thought what John said about this kind of brings you back to an era of store. That's one of the last blocks downtown that didn't get knocked down and redeveloped and has that feeling of the recessed entrance and the store windows. So you gave thought to art in the store.
Oh,
Tell me about that.
I think that came from Matt.
Absolutely.
And Matt is, like,
He's
is
still involved that way?
Yes, he is the man. Matt, he's an artist by trade. I think bicycles was just the secondary for it, right? And we got that vibe when we went into 137 Orange, and he had all his pictures and photos up. He really didn't want to move any bike stuff in there. He just wanted to be like a gallery. It was like, all right, Matt, we can't.
That was nice there, the old
Yeah.
photos yet.
Yeah.
Well, how are you envisioning, besides paying attention to the store windows, how are you paying attention to the inside with art? Do you have regular shifting of what's displayed?
Yeah, so of course, we got jerseys up around the top of the space. We brought in a young guy named Harvey, who's
Harvey?
Harvey is a skater, and he shoots all the skaters, but also he's a graffiti artist. And it was like one day I just happened to see his artwork, and I said, you know what? We need to have it in the store, right? We really need to.
So is that a permanent part of the store, his
It
artwork?
is.
What's
It
his
is.
last name?
Oh God.
Oh,
That's-
I don't know.
Everyone calls him Harvey. I wish.
So it's got a feel of that kind of skater culture, graffiti
Yeah.
culture.
right,
Yeah.
and it's like the old and the new, right? And why can't they exist together? They can. They can, right? And then we do a play on our colors, which is black, yellow, orange, and red. And that's always been the shop colors. And I think Greg kind of lets me go with the whole vibe of the shop. And we have friends of the shop like Mike Dunn, who's there today, that's going to help us on a new project. But then I realized, like, it is a community space. We want people to come there. We got a sofa, chill out. Normally we have candy in the dish. People make meals out of candy, which is fine. And you should come in and relax. We want you to.
Meanwhile, you got the New Haven rising right across the
Right.
street where the
Yeah.
Villas Apartments. What
Right.
do you think when you look out your window and you see that?
You know, it was kind of funny because I went over there and welcomed them to the neighborhood. I didn't realize the photograph was going to be me, like, with a shovel in my hand. That's let me get a percentage of this building here. Then, if that's the case, then. But it's great. It is great, and the best thing about it, I think, is bringing more and more people, eclectic people, to New Haven. And at the end of the day, do we need affordable housing? Yes, we do. But I probably digress off of that one because it's. But we have housing going in, and hopefully they are thinking about that also.
All right. Well, before we let you go, and but great work with the store. I'm so glad you guys are thriving, evolving,
Thank you, Paul.
reimagining our city, helping us do that. Any future plans we didn't mention?
Greg?
John?
Okay. So we like to use our space for everything. So if you have an idea, we have used the space for our art gallery. We have spoken word,
Okay.
a concert.
Mm-hmm.
Just give us a call, Greg or shoot us an email, Greg at thedevilsgear.com or JohnnyB@thedevilsgear.com, or just call.
Or stop by.
Or
At
stop by.
845 Chapel.
That's
Eight-
us.
Devil's
845.
Gear Bike Shop, one of the great places in New Haven. Going strong, going long. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
John Verhaan and Greg Ledowski, two of the owners, along with Matt Feiner of the Devil's Gear Bike Shop. Thanks for helping close out Bike Month with a bang here on Dateline New Haven, WNHH FM. Thanks to Nora Grace Flood and Harry Droz working the controls. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long with WNHH New Haven's home for community radio.